everybody, and welcome to the Macabre Podcast Universe. This is the podcast where we analyze film franchises and we exist to prove people wrong when they say
sequels are never better than the original.
That's right. Now, right up front, we got an elephant in the room, and it's a big one. So, we are talking about the spin-off for Ip Man. So, we've done Ip Man 1, 2, and 3, and we are now on to Master Z, the legacy of Ip Man.
The Ip Man legacy.
The Ip Man legacy. Okay, I need to make sure I don't get that wrong in the show title. But right now we live in Medford, Oregon, and there are some insane fires. So the week that the first Ip Man episode came out, we had evacuated our apartment, gone to Jordan's grandparents, come back, left, all of this stuff. So we've been going all over the place. So right now we're using different mics. We're at Jordan's parents. We're in a different location. So if the audio quality is not up to snuff as usual, please give me a break on that.
Yeah.
And also, I'm assuming by this time we'll have a better knowledge of everything that's happened, and hopefully it's all done, because we're still in the throes of it right now. Their fires are still insane.
We're at a level 2 currently where we sit.
Yeah, we might have to stop mid-podcast. But what we would like to say is that we'll put some sort of information on helping out people who've been displaced in the valley, because so many homes have been destroyed. They're
at this current recording an estimated 600 homes and at least 100 businesses, but that's approximate.
It is so insane, and that's not to bring a downer on this episode, but it's we got to talk about it. But we're thankful you're here, and we hope if you are an Oregonian that you are okay.
Yeah.
I know most of our audience is Medford and the Jackson County, so I hope all of you guys are okay. Mm-hmm. But we've got through that, and we are here to talk about Master Z, the Ip Man legacy. Right? Did I get the title right that time?
Yes.
Okay, so right off the bat, Jordan and I had not seen this movie, except for like 3 or 4 nights ago. Usually we watch it, then the next day we record, but we had to evacuate and stuff, so we haven't recorded in a few days. But
thankfully this movie was good, in my opinion. I feel like I remember it decently.
And I took pretty extensive notes, so we'll be fine. But yeah, I wanted to say that we were pretty lukewarm about Ip Man 3. We still liked the stunts, but we felt the story kind of sucked. But this movie, Jordan and I were like, this is so good.
Jaw-dropping.
It was
the whole
crazy.
Time. And the story was really good.
The story was cool. Like, I thought it was a really, really good movie. Mm-hmm. And it was just exciting. Like, the whole movie was just so exciting. So, do you have anything else before we jump into the director? Okay. So, the director is nuts. I did not know this. He's in his 70s. And he's been working on movies for, 40, 50 years.
70 years.
Yeah, he started as a baby. His name is Yoon Woo Ping, and he directed the sequel to Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon. But actually, he came over into American filmography in that movie as a stunt coordinator. This guy has stunt coordinated and done the martial arts stuff for Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, Kill Bill 2, the Matrix series, and then he came up with Jackie Chan, I think, in the Drunken Master movies. Okay. So this guy is
makes me want to watch this movie so much more now.
Yeah, he knows his stuff, and I watched this interview with him, and it's just cool because apparently, according to the actors and stuff like that, even though he's in his 70s, someone comes up to him. And they're they're not doing the stuff right, and he walks up and he's like, no, you have to do this and this and this. And so this 70-year-old man, well into his 70s, is like, hey, let me fix what you were doing.
Let me show you what you need to be doing.
Yeah. So that's freaking cool. Love that. And so it's produced by Raymond Wong, and it's important to point this out because Raymond Wong is the producer for the Ip Man movies. So that's what differentiates this from the other Ip Man movies that we aren't covering. This is the same guy producer.
Producer, sorry. Yeah.
Yeah, we're on a producer now. And Donnie Yen also produced this one. So there is that connection. It's written by Edmund Wong, who did the Ip Man movies, and then screenplay by Tai Lee Chan, who did all the Ip Man movies. So it's basically the same crew, different director. It comes out December 21st, 2018. The budget of the movie is $28 million. Domestically, here in the U.S., it makes $209,000. And then worldwide, it makes $21.8 million.
Oh, no, it wasn't a hit.
It wasn't quite a hit.
How was it not a hit?
I know, it's really good.
Are we
really
going to be
good.
alone in this assumption? Or
That'll be interesting.
Because guys, it's good.
It's good. It's good.
Potentially, I like it better than. Well, no, never mind. I'll just wait. I'll wait.
Okay. So a couple things to point out about how they made this. One, it was just cool. I also read an interview with Yoon Woo Ping on how he directs and because he did the coordination for the movie as well. And a lot of it has to do with like in this movie we have Dave Bautista. Mm-hmm. He's a wrestler. Mm-hmm. So he has him in this movie and he's like, okay.
And guess what? They use him.
Yes, unlike the Tyson thing. Is that where you get at? Yeah. But so they have him in here, and instead of him being like, okay, let's try and teach him martial arts, he's like, no, he's a wrestler. I'm going to use that.
Cool.
And same with like actors throughout the movie. Like we have Tony Jaa in this movie, who's like a Thai martial artist, famous for the Ong Bak series, and that's like a whole other style of martial arts. So he adapts to that. So that's like how he kind of directs the movie. Both Brian Thomas Burrell, who was like the British guy.
Ty Burrell.
No. But you know who I'm talking about, the British guy? Who's like the general?
The cop. Well, I mean, whatever. He represented
the UK.
Yeah.
So both him and Xing Yu, who was the guy with the tin box in Ip Man 1, play different roles in this movie.
That guy's in the first movie too?
Xing Yu is in Ip Man 1, and Brian is MC in Ip Man 2.
He is.
Who's MC?
He's the MC of the boxing match. He's
really?
The announcer. Yeah, I'm seeing his face now.
That's so weird.
How do they do? Like, why do they do that?
Okay, so I tried to Google it.
It's got to be their agent, right?
But
I'm talking specifically the British guy because this is a Chinese market in terms of filmmaking. Yeah. And I just wonder if he already was in one. Maybe he's done some other Chinese stuff that we don't know about. Maybe he doesn't, but maybe he just has like a connection now. And maybe, I don't remember in this movie if he speaks any Chinese, but in the other movie he was translate. Like he was, well, I know it was a script, but like I wonder if it's like he kind of understands it too.
Right.
And they don't care as much that he was in another movie.
I'm just confused. I'm very confused why, because if you're forgetting, folks, so we talked about Brian, but Xing Yu, he was the guy that died in Ip Man 1. Mm-hmm. That kind of inspires Ip Man to fight the
back.
Japanese general. And so when you see him in this movie, I keep on waiting for him. I mean, maybe this is because I'm like Marvel-centric. I kind of was waiting for like a scene where he's like, Ip Man once inspired me, and everyone thought I was dead or something. Because he just owns a bar, and he's like a main character in this movie.
Yeah.
And I don't know why they would cast
Maybe
those two people.
It just doesn't matter as much to them. to like that film industry. I don't know. I haven't seen that many Chinese movies, so
it makes
I don't know.
me want to rip my hair out though. Because just imagine you put on Captain Marvel 2, and then Chris Evans walks in and he's like, "Hey, I'm Lieutenant Hannon. How are you guys doing?" And we're like, "Oh, that's Captain America." And then after the movie, they're like, "No, he's Lieutenant Hannon."
So the only way this is acceptable is whenever Ryan Johnson can make the next Knives Out movie with the same cast.
Well, that's not confirmed at all.
But let's say he does it.
Yes,
that's the only way it works because you have prior knowledge that that's going to happen. Like that's part of the fun.
Yeah, I think if it was less of a series, because that's like
a serial.
That's a serial event. So.
Well, episodic. Same thing.
Episodic, yeah. It's like the American Horror Story thing.
Does that bug you, or do you like that?
No, it's like same actors. But, I mean, how weird would it be if in American Horror Story you're watching the show and then like, let's say Rami Malek's in it. I don't know why. That's the first name I thought of. And I
might start watching American Horror Story again.
What? I'm so confused by your Rami Malek thing.
It's weird. I don't know what it is. I think he. Because, okay, let's go on a Rami Malek tangent for a second.
Okay, let me finish mine. Okay. Then you go to yours. Okay, so, like, what if Rami Malek's in it, and he's in the first 4 episodes of American Horror Story. He dies, and then 3 episodes later, he comes back, and he's like, hey, everybody, my name's this new character, and it's never acknowledged.
And the next, you're talking
about... In
the
same season.
Oh, same season.
That is, like, the same... That's what I feel like is the same thing that happens in this.
And you're saying this is a world where in the story that... It's not connected in any way, because that's a show where it could be like a alternate dimension thing.
Yeah, no, it's just like a new character, and there's no like connection, there's no explanation. It's just like, hey, I'm this character, and it's the same actor, and it's not. He's not. I just think it's so weird.
It is weird. I agree with you. I'm just trying to think of it contextually to China. Like maybe it's just not weird.
And then before you go, Rami Malek, and I know I feel like I'm overpowering right now, but I think it's just a different setting and all the stuff. I'm like, oh. But yeah, I tried to research why, and I couldn't find anything.
I think that means it's not important. Like I think it means maybe it just happened.
I'm giving it a point against though. Okay.
Okay.
We deep dive into movies. I think that was a weird and bad decision.
Okay.
That's what I'm saying.
Okay, sure. You can have your opinion.
You're like giving them credit for something that probably
I'm not
isn't
giving them credit. I'm just trying to understand why they would do it. I'm not giving them credit for it. It's a foreign film. I don't know. Okay, Rami Malek for a second. So you think I have a weird fascination with him?
I do.
So this is why I okay, so guys, he won an Oscar, totally 100% should not have won. Shouldn't have even been nominated. Like, it's a travesty that he won. That's not saying that he's a bad actor, and it's not saying that he did a bad job. Granted, he won an Oscar for a terrible, and I can't emphasize enough, terrible movie. And he won an Oscar for it. Yeah. For portraying someone like a weird whatever a band biopic, and shouldn't have won at all. And I just think though, I remember watching the movie, hating every second of it, but still thinking like, I think he's doing a pretty good job. He's not the problem with the movie,
right?
It's clearly all these other things. Then I think because of that, I feel that way towards him in the movie. I just think he has it, and I just don't feel like I've quite seen it yet. Because I've seen him.
I think I see what you're saying.
Because I saw him, I've seen him in the Twilight movies, obviously, and he's in it for like barely anything. And then when I recently rewatched BoJack, I was reminded that he plays a character in BoJack. He is
really good in BoJack.
I forget he writes Filbert, the director and writer of Filbert.
Yeah,
I can't remember his name. And when I realized that again, that he was the voice acting for it, I was like, he is doing such a crazy voice acting job. Like a crazy job in that role. Because it doesn't sound like him.
No, it is very good.
And it's like, he just nailed the character.
Sure.
So I think it's also because of that I want to see him in something else.
Yeah.
It's almost like he's got one more chance for me.
Yeah.
That's why I have a fascination with it. And that's probably all I have the Mall's Heart thing on my Netflix list that I'll probably never watch. Right. But it's there, and I might watch it at some point. That's Rami Malek.
It's just very funny, and I'm sure that there's something like that for me where you would be like, Micah, I don't understand this about like something you like about movies or something. Maybe it would be like my fascination with the DC universe and wanting to see it all, because it's like... It's too
That's
weird.
A much deeper issue than Rami Malek, but yeah.
But it just cracks me up because every time you're like, oh, he's in this? And then it's like either just a normal, like, okay performance, or it's like not that good.
I don't think I've seen him in that much.
I know, but...
I have not seen him in enough. That's the way to say it.
Yeah, and I don't think he's a bad actor.
And
I just want to say my point. I don't think he's a bad actor. And I kind of get what you're saying. Like, I could see him coming out with a movie that I see and I'm like, oh my gosh. Like him doing like an Andrew Cunanan from American Crime Story level thing where it's like, this guy, if he does nothing good again, it doesn't matter. He had that performance.
Yeah.
But I'm just not fascinated with him that much.
I think what I'm saying is every time I have seen him in something, I guess I'm left with wanting more.
Yeah,
which is a good thing. And he is in the new James Bond movie.
He is the bad guy of James Bond, and that is like perfect casting to me.
Yeah, also when I found out that he's the villain, I was like, unbelievable casting for that one.
Yeah.
It is, I just think that's perfect. And I have not seen the James Bond movies besides Casino Royale.
Yeah.
So my opinion really doesn't matter. But I just was like, Cary Fukunaga directing this, Rami Malek is the bad guy. Let's see what he can do.
Yeah.
That's why.
The more we do this podcast, the more I'm pretty much convinced there aren't a lot of bad actors in a lot of these movies. There's bad direction and bad writing.
Yeah.
Or an actor like just totally in the wrong zone. But then you see him in, because there's so many actors we've talked about on this where we're like, oh, I don't like him. And then we see him in a movie and we're like, oh, they just weren't used correctly because they're killing it in this. Mm-hmm. So I do think he's good. It's just funny. I don't have much of a fascination with him. And I know, and you do. It seems like every time he's brought up, you're like, huh?
Well, I'll give you an update, listeners, once the day comes that I'm not fascinated anymore.
Yeah.
Because I've had my fill.
We'll probably talk about No Time to Die whenever it comes out. Not in the context of this podcast, but just we'll probably mention it in our Oscar episode or something like that. If we see movies ever again.
Yeah.
So we'll see about that. Where were we though? We were talking about Master Z, the Ip Man legacy, and let's see. In April 2019, it was reported that Max Zhang, who's the main character, is set to reprise his role in a sequel to Master Z Ip Man Legacy. The sequel is reported to be taking a budget cut down to $13 million from the first film's budget of $28 million. But we're getting a sequel,
I am surprised they're getting a sequel. Because it was not a successful movie.
I know.
What are they doing?
I don't know, but I want to see it.
I hope, though, because the stakes are going to be so low that it's just
like they have to outdo themselves.
Just nutso. And the first movie was already so nuts.
Yes. And then finally,
my expectations just got too high.
I want to tell you that this I cannot think of another. This is why I love doing the podcast so much for information like this. This is too interesting. So Ip Man is a real person, and Ip Man 1 is like loosely based on real events. Ip Man 2 little looser. Ip Man 3, from what I could tell, was pretty much just made up. So that's already kind of weird to take like a real character and turn them into a franchise.
Yeah.
A real person, that is. Kind of weird. But in Ip Man 3, we're introduced to Master Z, which they never call him Master Z in either of the movies, I don't think.
Not that I remember.
Which I guess is kind of badass, like this movie. So then Master Z is a made-up person that does not exist. And then he gets a spin-off. So is this the only time ever that there has been a series of movies about a real person that a spin-off happens for someone that never existed?
It has to be. That's too specific.
How weird is that, though?
That's weird.
It's
and
like
awesome.
Kind of awesome.
They in the creation of these movies, by the time we get to the third one, they introduce this character that's completely fictional, and they're like, "Oh my gosh, guys, we just wrote an amazing character. We have to make his own movie." That's probably what happened.
Probably. And he is like the coolest part of Ip
Man 3.
And
I wonder if they got a lot of great feedback from Ip Man 3 for that guy.
Yeah. And remember, he was, listen back to the previous episode to confirm, listener, but I think I found out that he was not like a trained martial artist and learned for Ip Man 3.
No, he didn't.
Well, we talked about it last week.
I don't remember.
So now I'm starting to think maybe it was another person. It probably was another person.
That would be insane.
And I'm not going to look it up, folks. You have to look it up yourself. It'd be on the Wikipedia for Ip Man 3.
Okay, so is it my turn?
Yes, and I'll probably look it up while you're doing that.
Okay, so we covered Johnny Depp in the last movie, which I will call Tenchi throughout this movie. I won't call him Johnny Depp the whole time.
Please.
And then we've also covered Dave Bautista in Guardians, but in this movie we also have Michelle Yeoh, or Yeoh? I guess it's just Yeoh.
Yeah.
Who is I've never known who this person was until I saw her, and I was like, no, I know who this is. I just never know what her name was.
Sure.
She's in so much stuff. I recently just saw her in Crazy Rich Asians. Most recent thing.
That's cool.
But she's in Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon. She's in a James Bond movie, Tomorrow Never Dies. She's in Kung Fu Panda 2, Last Christmas, a couple Star Trek stuff.
Oh, you know what?
She is in Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. Who is she?
She is the crazy lady with the crazy hair that's in one of the extra groups at the end.
She's the one at the end with like the lanky kind of greasy hair, and they're all saluting to Yondu.
Yeah.
I just need to say it again for myself. That's her.
Yes.
Yeah. Cool.
That's cool.
Love it.
Really quick, let me get back in on Max Zhang, the lead character of this movie. I just remembered that he.
Where do you hear Max? Because on IMDb it's Jin.
Oh, I don't know why. Did I say Max?
Yeah.
Well, I know I said it now. I'm sorry, folks. I'm sorry. Remember, give us extra credit on this episode. But he got to start working on Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, so he was trained.
Okay.
I remember that in Ip Man 2, his Ip Man's disciple had not been trained for any stunts at all.
That's still pretty crazy. Yeah, that guy was good.
He has some significant stunt work in that or martial arts.
So he must have been hired up based on his act, just that guy's it. He's what we're looking for.
Yeah.
Crazy.
So, yeah.
And then like Micah mentioned, Tony Jaa's in this movie, who does one of the simultaneously crazy and funniest things I've ever seen in a movie. In this movie.
Yeah. Let's hang on to that though.
But he is in Ong Bak, which is a very insane, famous. Is it a Thai movie? Okay. A Thai franchise that we will cover at some point.
Yes. And if you want us to cover it, let us know, because we're kind of dipping our toe into martial arts and we're getting the itch.
He's also in Triple X, Return of Xander Cage.
We'll have to cover that sometime.
Paradox, On That Night While We Dream. Fast and Furious 7.
Okay, what? He's in Fast and Furious 7?
Yeah.
Okay, we're going to have to cover that series now. Now I'm convinced.
Olivia just got so excited that she just heard that.
I think next year, once we get, you know what we should do? You know how we had the one plan?
Yeah.
You know the series that we were, the multi-series that we were going to cover throughout the decades of the different versions of that person?
Oh, but I wanted to do that.
No, we still will.
Oh,
but
okay.
Maybe we should do Fast and Furious before that.
Let's talk about it later.
Okay.
I don't want to commit to anything.
Now that's all it took. Everyone's been telling me you have to watch Fast and Furious. You said Tony Jaa's in Furious 7.
And one of them, you have to get through 6 to get to that one.
He's probably not even in it that much, but he probably has a scene that's just damn, that was cool.
Okay, then we have Chrissy Chow, who is the girl who is addicted to opium.
Okay.
The friend. She is in Perfect Wedding, 29+1, All's Well.
Oh, so she's in 30.
I guess. She's in a lot of stuff that I've never heard of because it's all Chinese.
Yes.
And then who else? I'm going to try and find the other girl. Julia, who is Yan Liu. She is in My Dear Liar, Love Keeps Going, Badges of Fury, and all these things that I'm saying are Chinese movies. And she is in just a crazy amount more. I don't know. Who else should I cover?
Well, I wanted to mention that with Michelle Yeoh, for the eagle-eyed listener, she is the person that Amy Johnston, our guest on Ip Man 2, is the reason she became a stunt person. Because she saw her in, I think she said Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon.
I think she did, yeah.
And she was like, oh my gosh, I have to do that. So it was pretty cool to see her in this movie. And funny enough, we're just so not well-versed in martial arts that I didn't realize who she was until...
Yeah, she comes on screen, I'm like, oh, I just saw her in Crazy Rich Asians. That's cool. And then she starts fighting, and it's like, oh, she's a big deal.
Well, I know, and it was funny because she has that big action sequence, and I was like, oh, this must be a really famous person because she's doing this. And then I look up the cast, and I'm like, Micah, you consider yourself a film buff, and you didn't know who Michelle Yeoh is. You should be ashamed of yourself. That's how I felt.
And so he was for a while.
And I am. But we've corrected it, and we should probably, because it sounded like Amy Johnson hadn't seen the rest of the movie. So when I'm sending her the stuff for the new movie, I might have to mention that she's in this movie and she should watch it because she has a crazy sequence. And another cool thing I've been watching on Amy Johnston's Instagram, that she did all this stunt work for The Last of Us Part 2, the video game that came out this year.
Okay.
And she has like behind the scenes footage where it shows her and the video game footage at the same time.
Whoa, that's cool.
And it's really cool stuff.
Yeah.
She's a baby in one scene. Like throwing her arms around.
Yeah. Wow.
And
that sounds so fun.
Yeah, I know. It's really cool stuff to look at. So if you're interested in following up on our wonderful guest from 2 weeks ago, go to her Instagram.
Yeah.
So should we dive in?
Yeah.
So here we go. The movie starts, and it kind of flashes back to the previous movie.
It's a montage of newspaper clippings showing us like so he wants to open up a I almost said fight club. I mean,
a martial arts school, a Wing Chun school.
A Wing Chun school. Then he challenges Ip Man, and then Ip Man doesn't call for the challenge, and then they fight privately. and then he loses the fight privately and leaves in shame.
Yeah, so that's where our
gives up Wing Chun
movie begins.
I like true crime, so I decided to make a true crime podcast where I cover true crime stories year by year.
And I hate true crime, so I decided to beef up my wife's true crime podcast by telling people what was on TV during each one of those murders, or who was winning that wrestling match during that awful rape.
The result is American Timelines, where we cover strange, fascinating happenings.
And sometimes silly stories, and even birthdays. Didn't you always wonder when Don Cheadle was born?
No.
Didn't you at least wonder what the #1 song was when Don Cheadle was born?
No.
Well, what did you want to know?
Just about murder. Sweet, sweet, grisly murder.
Well, sometimes you talk about UFOs or ghost stories, too.
Yes, those are cool, too.
And who hasn't wondered what episode of 227 was on during a haunting?
Everyone.
Download and subscribe to American Timelines by History for Jerks. You can hear it on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, wherever you get your podcasts.
It's better than it sounds.
It really is.
American Timelines by History for Jerks, the greatest podcast ever.
And so one of the cool things about this movie is it kind of continues the theme of like Wing Chun as kind of a character in its own.
Yes.
Like the previous movies. And he has decided, I'm not going to, like, he's been disgraced, and he only uses, from what I understood, Kung Fu, like different styles of Kung Fu instead of Wing Chun.
He's not fighting Wing Chun because he is working on the side, under the table for, like, quote unquote bad guys.
Yes.
So the bad guy is telling him, like, you are hurting bad men.
Right.
To help good people, which is, he's doing illegal things for money.
Right. And, right away at the beginning, when you find out that he's not doing Wing Chun, you're just like, oh, I can't wait till the last scene when he decides to use Wing Chun again.
Yeah, because you know it's going to take the whole movie, and you love that.
Yeah, and then when he does, it's freaking cool. But we'll get to that. So now he has a store, like a grocery store, and he's doing like dirty work to help pay for the bills.
Well, the movie starts with him quitting that. So he's no longer doing it.
That's right, yeah.
And he still has his son, so it's just him and his son. This takes place pretty soon after the last movie because his son's still young.
Mm-hmm.
Thank goodness he doesn't have another son because he probably wouldn't be in this movie like the other Ip Man movie.
Yeah.
But
oh yeah.
I think the writing is so good in this movie because they do it in such quick and simple ways of you learn that, his son's like, are you going to be late tonight? Which you kind of know from the last movie that he gets caught up a lot.
Uh-huh.
But you can tell something important's happening tonight. And he's really, depending on his dad to be home on time.
Yes. And because I know we're going to forget about it when we start getting into the plot. So I just want to talk about, like, I think that the writing's really good in that they have, like, some nice, like, poetic feeling moments.
Mm-hmm.
Like, at the beginning, his kid is like, oh, I'm so tired of whatever meal they're eating.
A congee and a fried bread for breakfast.
Yes, and he's like, I really want steak. And, like, different kinds of beef. And his dad's like, yes, we'll get it. And eventually on his birthday, when his dad shows up too late.
At 10 p.m.,
like the restaurant's closed, he can't get him the beef, and it's like, too bad. And then later they have it, but it's under some weird circumstances. And then at the end of the movie, once everything is resolved, his son's like, I want the congee and fried bread.
Oh, it just makes you want to cry. It's such
really
a
sweet because they've been through so much.
They do a lot of great setting up in this movie. That was one of them. And then even the scene before that, when he was quitting, the guy was threatening to shoot him. And he said, like, if you're within 7 steps of a man, you will not get shot, like, because of martial arts.
Yeah.
And he proves it. The guy tries shooting him, and he stops him.
Oh, yeah.
And that does come back around later.
I could watch the movie tonight again.
Yeah, it's amazing.
It's really
and by
good.
the time that comes back around too, you're like, oh my gosh, this was from the beginning.
Yeah.
And he's doing it right now, but it's insane.
Yeah.
So go ahead.
Well, then we get introduced to the sister character
Julia,
who's what seems to be in like a prostitute maybe / like she's addicted to drugs and she's being forced to do
not Julia.
things
It's the other one. Yeah.
that she doesn't want to do, and then like she has to pay up for her drug habit. So she goes to pay up, and then
her sister, well, it's her friend, not her sister, comes to her rescue. And she does a little bit of fighting that is pretty dang cool, but there's a lot of thugs there.
Yeah.
And
it was cool to see a woman like taking them on. I
wish
like,
she had done more.
Finally.
I wish she had done more. Because
yes.
and I know I know it wouldn't totally make sense for the story, but at the end of the movie when he's like, I need to take care of it, it is kind of like the typical woman, stay home, take care of my child, I'll go take care of it. But I know the movie's not about her, I know.
Right.
But I do wish that there was more of her in it.
I think if she only had, she only has this one fighting scene.
Yeah.
But if it was only that, I'd be like, come on, give us some more. But since Michelle Yeoh gets to like take on 2 guys and like pretty much it's a stalemate, I feel like as a man, I feel pretty good about that. But I don't know if you felt differently.
I just think there could be more.
I would love a Michelle Yeoh spinoff.
Sure, let's do another. So yeah, that happens, and then Tenchi shows up around the time that's happening and helps. And then the police show up and arrest everybody. And I will say before that, so the girl, the drug addict, I'll just say, she is like treated so terribly. She is abused like crazy. Like so many of the hits in this movie and like smashing bottles over people's head is like kind of the craziest I've ever seen. Like it looks like everything hurts so bad.
It really does.
And like the girl at one point, they're like, I mean, it's like the drug lord is like kind of is beating her up, and it just looks like, it looks like he's kicking her. Let's calm down a little bit. I guess they framed it really well, and all the stunts were just really well done.
And I think the director like just really knows how to make things look like they hurt bad, because the whole movie. You know, in Ip Man 3, we talked a lot about how, like, it felt like there was a transition in how they were filming.
Yeah.
And Yoon Wing Poo, like, he did do the coordination for Ip Man 3 as well. But it felt like there was kind of like, maybe we're updating some stuff or we're changing how we film things a little bit. And so sometimes it just didn't feel right.
Yeah.
But in this movie, it's like every fight is like, you feel it, you see it, you're like, yes. And he, for the most part, when there's group fighting, he kind of, for the most part, hides the people in the back who are just standing there waiting.
Well, most of it is because you do know that there are a lot of people there because of it being established at the beginning of the scene, but most of those people are coming into the screen to fight him. And like what's happening behind, that's not as much people. Like in the last movie, there's like hundreds of people. And then I think it's also like, I think how it's blocked too. The focus of the camera is completely on the 2 people fighting.
Yeah.
So when people do come into screen, it's like, it is kind of like, oh man, there are a lot of other people here other than what are all those people just doing standing around?
Yeah.
It was just done much better.
Yeah. No, I totally agree with you. And, but you did forget something about, so back to the scene where the girl is fighting.
Mm-hmm.
Our main character, Master Z, has bought a Batman ripoff present, which I found out.
And boy, is it a ripoff.
That is like a real...
Really?
That's a real thing back in the time. They did like research and tried to find like what would be like a toy.
That's cool.
Back then. So that like Batman ripoff, a toy, is a real toy that you could have gotten.
Oh, that's cool.
And I forgot about the music box thing at the end of the movie. That's a big hell yeah for me, but I don't want to spoil it, even though hopefully you've already seen this movie. This movie's really good. It's probably my favorite. After we've simmered,
Same.
I think Ip Man might be the best, but this one's my favorite.
We'll talk about it at the end.
We will. So we're going along, and he just got the present for his son, whose birthday's coming up, and then this guy comes in and like hits him on accident, and like his present falls, and he looks up and he goes, "You broke my present," and then he uses a bicycle to fight like everybody.
Mm-hmm.
He uses a bicycle. That's freaking cool.
Mm-hmm.
So if you want
That
to
was
make
like a cool crane shot.
yeah, and if you want to make action movies, use bicycles.
I think that they used a lot of objects
they did,
in this movie.
which made it so much more fascinating.
Yeah.
And it helped. One of the things I loved about this movie is when I saw that there's a spinoff and I saw the cover, which is a lot more like cheesy looking than the other 4 movies. I was just like, I really hope that the movie maybe goes a little bit more into like how Ip Man 2 was a little more fantastical fighting rather than realism. And I was like, I'm hoping this movie does that. And boy, does it. And they even pump it up a little bit. It's still in the like, this feels possible.
Yeah.
But it's a little more like, oh, these people are not human.
Yeah.
Like they can do things that humans can't do a little bit.
Right.
So I loved that about the movie. And I love this fight. So one thing though, so they don't make it to the restaurant. And Dave
They
Bautista
all got arrested.
Yes.
And the British guy was like, let them all go because basically they're working with all the drug dealers, all of the illegal people in town.
Yeah.
So just let them go. Eventually they let Tenchi go, but it, like you said, he gets home late and it's his son's birthday, doesn't make it. But a very cute thing happens is he gives his son his present, and his son is so excited about it because it's like his favorite superhero, and it doesn't work because it was broken. And he's
the music aspect of it.
The music aspect, yeah. And Tenchi's just like really sorry and feels so bad, and he's like, I don't care, I like it because it's from you.
Yeah,
And
that's
it's
sweet.
like, come on.
And I think it's cool. I think it's interesting that they chose a hero, like a superhero, because it feels like they're making that commentary of like, yes, there are superheroes, but these are the real heroes.
Yeah. And
like him being a father is the real heroic thing. And I thought that was interesting and cool. And I think living in the, I don't know how much like a 7-year-old director is thinking about this, but it's like with the world covered by superheroes right now is like the trend in film and stuff. It almost feels like they're kind of like, we like superheroes, that's cool, but at the end of the day, it's a martial arts movie. Okay,
those are fictional.
Yeah, that's kind of how it, but it doesn't feel in that gross way that like Joker did, where it's like, remember,
No.
like you suck because you like
it's just
comics.
more of a theme than anything.
And I love that about it. But there is something about this movie that's really bad.
Okay.
The score is horrible.
It is very bad.
It's very bad. It's very like, it feels like they took stock tracks from like Facebook or something.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of guitar in the score, acoustic guitar, which is odd. And then there's also this one point, and I think they had someone like perform a song. As a guitar player, I could tell whoever was playing guitar like was not an accomplished guitar player, because it was like, what are you doing?
Oh,
This does not sound good.
What part of the movie?
It was like kind of like an emotional moment where it's built. It was when that song came in and they started singing.
Yeah. I kind of remember.
But the guitar, there's a lot of guitar before that on electric this time, and I was just like, what? Like, this is clearly not a guitar player who's playing right now. Or maybe it's a guitar player playing, but they didn't write it.
Yeah, okay.
It just felt like there was a lack of knowledge of the instrument, and I can't really express it, but maybe the musicians who listen will notice what I'm talking about.
Okay.
Then we get to the gang meeting with Michelle Yeoh and the guy who looked like he should have been in the Hunger Games.
Yeah. He wears some very colorful, bright outfits. So Michelle Yeoh is in charge of basically the crime family. And that guy with the ponytail is her brother. But she wants to turn away from illegal business and become legal. And it's like, huh?
That's a cool
That's
thing.
interesting. This is like Godfather stuff. And I know in Godfather they didn't do that, but it's like, this is interesting business stuff happening.
Yeah, it's sort of like, okay, I'm watching a martial arts movie, but I'm like, okay, I want to know where this storyline goes.
I'm now invested in your story too.
Yeah.
Yes. So her brother Ponytail, he is not into that. He thinks, they do illegal stuff. That's just what they do. That's where the money is. And what she says goes.
Yeah.
So that's what's happening. So meanwhile, that happens. And then I think that night, Tenchi is at home with his son, and Ponytail and his henchmen come and burn down his shop.
They throw Molotov cocktails.
Pretty insane scene with the fire.
It's really cool. And he uses like he's like locked, chained into his grocery store
with only one
apartment.
Exit, which is like, dude, how come you don't have another exit?
Yeah. And he uses like a Coca-Cola machine to explode so that it can refrigerator to get him out of the building. When he gets out, something I've never seen before in a movie, the henchmen are throwing Molotov cocktails at him, like
laughing,
like very quickly. They're just hucking them at him specifically, and he's having to dodge them.
Holding
his
son, his son who was burned, and he is also burned pretty badly on his arm. Yeah, that happens, and so he's running away from them, finds the Julia lady, and gives her his son and says, "Please, just take my son.
Yeah,
I need to handle this." So eventually,
and then we get to this sequence, folks. And folks, if you are like, I like to listen to the podcast, but I'm not really interested in watching
the movie,
this series right now in my life. Please, just for me, watch the signs, billboard. I don't know exactly what it'd be, but it has to be on YouTube. Like, it's like a billboard rooftop fight scene.
It was happening, and I said, I have never seen anything like this. And then I said, this is why I watch movies.
It kind of, it's still a little bit different, but there were parts of it where I was like, this is as good as like Mission Impossible for the feelings I'm feeling.
Yeah. Jaw dropped.
Like, so there are these signs that are sticking out of the building, and our protagonist is jumping around, fighting people, and jumping to different signs, and having fights. And the angles in the sequence are insane.
Mm-hmm.
They're so. I forgot to look up who did the cinematography, but the angles are just crazy, and they're swinging all over the place, and it's truly a feast for your eyes.
Yep.
But let's see. The director of photography is David Fu and Sepe Van Gryken. And then the composer is Day Tai. Because I forgot to hit those. So got to give him credit. It's just insane. And then they do all of that.
Yeah, to top it all off.
It's like neon lights and stuff like that. It's really cool.
The imagery is amazing, and the fights are just compelling. And it is one of those moments where it's like, how is he going to get out of this? But not only that, it gets to a point where he starts like chasing the bad guys on the signs. Because he's clearly better than all of them.
It's crazy.
And he's trying to chase them away.
He's still not using Wing Chun yet.
And he's burned severely on his arm.
Yeah.
So then, to top it all off, cherry on top of this scene, he gets down. Tony Jaa is there waiting for him to fight.
Yeah.
And not only that,
wearing a fedora.
Yeah, he's a Frank Sinatra type. Looks very cool. They start fighting like crazy.
There's a weird front flip that Tony Jaa does. I mean,
it's hard to describe all of it, but yeah.
Yeah, and you can see that it's not like totally real, but it's still freaking cool.
And he keeps hitting his arm that's burned. And he doesn't even look like it matters.
Oh, it's cool. And they're using their environment to jump around.
Yep.
And that's some of my favorite stuff. Like, all of this is just like environmental using. It's not like, let's clear the area so we can just fight with fists. It's like, oh, there's pillars. We're going to jump off the pillars.
Uh-huh.
There's signs. We're going to jump off the signs. Like, it's so cool. This movie is
How does
cool.
we not make money?
I don't know. Maybe after this, everyone will just watch it so much on Netflix that they'll have to do like much more.
Okay, so what happens after this?
So then this is all the like bar side stuff that's main stuff, but this is when we find out that like like he goes to this bar and starts working there. Master Z does, and it's the owner is the guy who died in Ip Man 1. That was the confusing
The
thing.
sister is Julia, who took his kid, so they're living with her right now because they don't have a home.
And at one point, Master Z breaks into an opium den and just like demolishes it and
Burns
leaves.
It. Fights fire with fire.
Cool.
And what's kind of crazy is, that happens in movies sometimes, but they never get away with it, and he just does it.
Yeah.
He just did it.
Yeah.
And then after that is the scene with Ponytail and the crazy guy from the last movie that somehow made it into this movie.
Yeah, which was I kind of liked that.
Me too. And his acting was good.
It's the guy who we referenced as Michael Jackson in our last episode.
Yeah, and I thought he was really good in this scene.
Yeah. And they're just basically the bad guys are basically deciding like I'm going to take out this guy even though my sister who runs the gang wants to legitimize us and we should start selling heroin as well. And so they start doing all of that. And that's...
Well, should you say first before when Tenchi starts working in the bar, he does come across Michelle Yeoh, and they have that insane... that's the Scotch scene. I don't know, like there needs to be a name for it.
Yeah.
I know it was just like, that's interesting.
Well, yeah, it felt like, when you mention a movie and you say, oh, this is the movie where blank happens.
Yeah.
This is like, oh, this is the movie where they have the tabletop whiskey
fight.
I
mean, I would say for me, this is the movie where they fight on signs, neon signs, more than this. But it is like, I've never seen that in a movie either. This thing that I'm watching right now with the Scotch. So
someone in the audience of the interview I was watching of the director was like, so how did you come up with that? And he was like, well, Michelle Yeoh, her character comes in and her and Master Z have never met before. And we wanted it to be tense, but we thought it didn't make any sense that they would just immediately start fighting. Like that just doesn't work.
Yeah.
And so we just came up with this as like a way for it to be tense, but not.
There was definite tension.
And we actually haven't even described what it is for anyone who hasn't seen the movie.
Yeah, so she orders a bottle of Scotch. He pours her the glass, and she's like, that's for you. And he says, I'm working. I'm not going to drink. He doesn't even know who she is. And she keeps insisting that he drinks to the point where they are, essentially fighting over handing each other the glass. But you'd have to watch it to really know what I'm talking
about. But they're like,
no, did not
like
spill
tossing
a drop.
it back and forth and like switching hands with it and stuff. And it's kind of like a power move. Like who's going to be like on top of this? Yeah. And I think they kind of...
It's a draw because the owner comes over and like stops. But she tells him, she's like, if there's anything you need, come and tell me. Because, he is now on her radar because of everything. So it's like... let me know if there's anything I can do.
And one note that I wanted to point out that I just saw was that I think this movie is one of the reasons I really liked it is because the last two have felt kind of bogged down in the mythology of like we have to respect Ip Man.
Yeah.
And we have to like make sure we tell this story that like respects him, and also we're obsessed with trying to insert Bruce Lee into these movies.
Yeah, Bruce Lee in this movie.
I know, but it feels like I just feel like the writers were able to, and of course it's not historical, so they can do whatever. Like it just felt like there was more freedom of expression in this movie.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I will say that there was a fair amount of Ip Man flashbacks to their fight.
Yeah,
but it makes sense in terms of Tenchi's character of like the weight of how the defeat affected him.
Totally. And I thought it was good for like us, we don't understand martial arts. We didn't live back then. So I thought it was a good way for the audience to be like, remember, this is like affects him a lot. And this is like very humiliating that he lost. And he's taking it very personally.
Yeah.
Instead of, we still would have got it, but I like that. And I also felt like it was like, yeah, this does belong in this series.
Yeah.
Even though it's made up in a historical series.
Yeah.
So fights barman, weird speed, and the music is such a stock music track. I don't remember what I was saying there. I think there was one fight scene that was a little odd because it was like it was sped up too much. Like I could really see how sped up it was.
I don't remember.
Yeah, I kind of forgot it too. But
okay, but so they're selling heroin now.
Yeah.
Ponytail. Oh, okay. So then earlier on in the movie, Dave Bautista's there for like a second. And then a lot of the movie goes by before you see him again, and you're just like, please, 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 fingers crossed, bees in this movie. Be in this movie.
Fingers crossed,
I know.
please be in this movie.
So, of course, he comes back, and he does actually affect plot. He does make change. He is
unlike
important.
Tyson.
And his character to the story as a whole is like, that makes sense.
Yeah.
So he is, first off, portrayed as a very kind person. Owner of the steakhouse in Hong Kong, American.
But I was
very
excited. I was
kind.
like, cool, he's a good guy. I'm
Right.
into it.
Find out he's a drug lord.
Yeah.
And then
Then I was like, cool, I'm into it.
and then even to top it off, like before you find that out, there's a pretty crazy scene where they're doing an auction for charity in his restaurant, and Michelle Yeoh is trying to bid on something to like, this is me coming out to being legal, like good, but people will not allow her. And she
Right.
bids like $100,000 for a vase, and people are like, that's dirty money. You can't do that. And he makes her go, like tells her to leave.
Which actually I was like, good for these people. They don't want dirty money even to help with charity. Good for them.
But then you find out Dave Bautista is nothing but dirty.
Yeah, that's
Him
true.
and his mustache.
Mm-hmm.
So he is big king drug lord to the point where
And when she says big, have you guys seen how big Dave Bautista
we couldn't
is?
stop talking about it. I said at one point they have to make him special clothes, just normal special clothes.
Well, and I feel like the closest analogy is probably Dwayne The Rock Johnson. Like, he's huge.
Yeah.
But when I see Dwayne The Rock Johnson in movies, I'm just like, please stop being so huge. It annoys me. When I see Dave Bautista, I'm like, you're so
marvel at it.
You're so round for some reason, but you're not fat. I love it.
And I think
You're
it's because
so
he's Drax
cool.
too. So you're just like, I love this guy.
Yeah.
Please be in everything. And he's a good actor.
The second Dwayne The Rock Johnson is in Guardians of the Galaxy and in makeup and that big, I guarantee you everything bad that I've said about Dwayne The Rock Johnson
In Guardians 2?
whenever he is cast in a Guardians movie.
Oh,
this is like
a Guardians
hypothetical.
specific movie?
Yes.
Sure. Okay.
Whenever that happens and he is like cool like Drax, I guarantee you I will be like, oh no, I've always liked Dwayne The Rock Johnson. He
What if
rules.
they like meet another person from his planet?
And it's Dwayne
Dwayne The Rock Johnson. That would be so cool.
Yeah.
I want it.
I would laugh so hard.
Me too.
But I love with Dwayne. I love on Blank Check with Griffin and David. Griffin's always like, he went through a period where he could just show up in a movie and you're like, that's a really buff guy. But now he is so big that every time he shows up in a movie, they have to come up with a reason for why this character is so big, because it is distracting if you don't know why he's so big.
Yeah, he can't just act normally.
That's why I thought he was perfect in Jumanji, Welcome to the
Yes.
Jungle.
Yeah.
But that's why when you see like a commercial for Skyscraper, it's like, no, you're doing Die Hard, and Die Hard's about like a regular man taking on a terrorist organization.
But you're not a regular man.
That's a superhero.
Meanwhile, just to compare, because that's what we're doing right now, Dave Bautista, really breaks out
And
in
he
Guardians.
also can't do wrong, first of all.
Can't do wrong. But he really breaks out in Guardians because, this movie did come out after Guardians.
Yeah.
Okay, so he didn't do like anything before Guardians. Well, maybe not. But I remember reading that when he got the Guardians role, he was so excited that he started taking acting lessons.
I remember you saying that, yeah.
And maybe he had acted before that, but maybe it was just not things that were important to him.
Well, but this is well past Guardians.
It is.
So.
It is. I just wasn't thinking about that when we were watching the movie.
Yeah.
But that being said, so then what's crazy about him is he picks such good roles from what I've seen.
Yeah.
Like,
he looks so good in Dune.
yeah, so he's in Dune, which is like, you're crazy. You like got a Denny movie? And then
he's in Blade
also
Runner 2049.
I know. So he's also
I'm gonna fight you right now.
He's also in Blade Runner. Like, that is so crazy that he chose that movie and he was chosen to be in that movie. And then he's, just started off in Guardians, which is just like, what an interesting casting.
Yeah.
No one knows who you are. And
That's not true at all.
Well, okay, I know. But people like me,
Yes.
it's just a big guy. And he
Right.
is electric in that movie and in the second movie.
Well, you know what's funny is it actually makes sense because Dwayne also, that's actually a perfect analogy because they're both wrestlers.
Yeah.
It makes sense that some of these guys can break through because they're literally like doing a different version of acting.
Yeah.
And especially like Drax, that's such a like over the top performance. So it makes sense that they're like, here's this wrestler who goes out every night and is like crazy over the top.
But I'm comparing it to Dwayne. So it's like Dwayne, same thing, has been in a crazy amount of movies.
Yeah.
Me, don't really care for him that much. Like I've seen him in stuff that I like.
I'm ready to change my mind on that though.
Oh,
I think
whatever.
I think part of it is we haven't actually seen Fast and Furious, and I think that's where people were like, he's the guy.
Whatever. But like, he's in so much that it almost feels like he's in too much.
Yeah.
And Dave Bautista, I just think he's just getting his feet wet.
Yeah.
But he's chosen such interesting things to get his feet wet in.
Sure, yeah. He seems a little more like Dwayne feels like he's trying to do. Dwayne's like a type 3. He's like, I want to do 18 movies in 5 years.
Yeah.
And it feels like Dave Bautista's like, oh, an Ip Man series where I can work with this legendary choreographer. I want to do that.
Yeah.
Hey, Disney, if you don't make Guardians 3 with James Gunn, I'm not going to be in it. He's like a little more artistic about it.
Yeah.
From my point of view.
Yes.
I mean, I don't want to bash on Dwayne. He could beat me up.
Yes, he could.
And he's also very charming. And I've heard stories about him that he's a very great person.
Yeah. Nothing against him.
Nothing. So...
Well, okay, well, just to get back to the movie. So he's big king drug lord, and the Ponytail and Michael Jackson, he makes one of them kill the other person to really trust one of them.
Yeah.
Ponytail gets the job done.
Yeah.
And then Dave Bautista says, you didn't even have to do that.
Yeah, his gun was not loaded.
Yeah.
But the guy who pulled the gun and his was.
Yeah.
That probably didn't make sense to anyone how I worded that. So then the sister from the beginning of the movie that's wrapped up and everything, she finds some heroin. She's
She's not a sister. You keep saying that.
Oh,
because if she was a sister, that means it was an incestuous relationship with the bar owner because he's the brother of Julia. Because he's in love with that girl.
That's right. Yep, that's right. So,
I think they say sister because, I think Julia says like a sister or something like that.
I think I'm just mixing it up. You don't have to give me that much credit.
Okay.
She finds heroin out in the street, and then Ponytail
kind of like
jumps her and
a
just
Breaking
shoves,
Bad moment.
Yeah, he just shoves heroin all over until she ODs and dies.
Yeah, pretty insane. Almost a little too insane.
I was pretty surprised that she died.
I was pretty surprised how she died.
Nana dies.
Not only that, throughout the movie, Navy men, American, are literally force feeding her drinks, alcohol.
Yeah, she's got a tough life.
Ugh, this is gross.
Yeah. But then, basically, Master Z and the owner of the bar are this has to end. And they go to Michelle Yeoh's hideout.
He calls on his favor.
Unbelievable fight. Just unbelievable.
And there's a lot of guys in this fight, and it doesn't bother me.
Doesn't bother me. They're doing really cool stuff. And then Michelle Yeoh grabs a
scimitar. I don't know if that's how you say it.
It's like that Arabian sword.
Yeah.
Or at least that's what I associate it with. I don't know if that's accurate. But and they're fighting with it. It's so insane. It's really cool. At one point, her brother, Ponytail, is doing something and she cuts off his arm.
But before that, she tries shooting Tenchi. And remember he...
Oh, yeah. I wrote gun within 7 paces. Yeah.
And he doesn't get shot. Well, I think he
in.
gets nicked, but he doesn't get shot.
It's so cool.
Unbelievable. And then she chops his arm off. She chops off her brother's arm.
And she says, is that enough? That's your peace treaty.
Yeah. And it's yeah, that's enough. Put down the sword, please.
Yeah. And so then they're basically okay, but this heroin stuff has to stop.
Mm-hmm.
And then the police plant heroin in the bar. People get arrested. And then the Batman figurine falls over. No. No, wait, I jumped way ahead. Sorry.
The bar owner gets arrested. Obviously a setup. Dave Bautista beats him to death.
Uh-huh.
Tenchi finds out because of the bracelet. If you've seen the movie, you know what I'm talking about.
Wait, Dave Bautista kills the bar owner?
Yes. Beats him to death.
Why am I not remembering that?
That's when in the warehouse when he cooks some steak. And remember,
yes,
crazy.
I remember that.
Beats him to. So first of all, he gets there and he's cooking him a steak. Sets the steak in front of him and says, "In about 5 minutes, that'll be perfect." because he's a steak guy.
Yeah.
And proceeds to beat him to death. And then when he is standing over his dead body, he says, "What a shame, your steak would have been perfect by now." Unbelievable.
Yeah. Yeah, that's when and I think that's just great because as a viewer, you're like, Dave Bautista's bad, he's selling drugs, and he had that guy killed, but that guy was a bad guy. But then this is like, oh, he's bad, he's gotta go.
Yeah.
Now you're like, I'm done with this guy.
Yeah.
And so then Master Z's like, take care of my son, all that stuff. And he goes down to the restaurant and he fights him. And the punches from Dave Bautista hurt. Like, and it's also cool because as we've talked about in Ip Man 1, he just is like invincible. So every time after Ip Man 1, anytime that he's not invincible, I'm like, okay, I guess I kind of buy it. I think the Tyson fight, they actually did a pretty good job of that.
Yeah.
But it's like, like in Ip Man 2, when he's getting beat by the boxer, it's like, nuh-uh. Not from what you showed me in the first movie. So it's a little like, okay. But in this movie, this guy got bested by Ip Man. So it's a little more believable. And then Dave Bautista, like the way it's shot, it's much more like, as Ilram Choi said in our Ip Man episode, go back and listen to that one, it's like as the continuity of strength like checks out.
Yeah.
And so they fight for a while and it's pretty give and take. There's a lot of like wrestling moves. Like I said, the director is like using Dave Bautista's strength.
Mm-hmm.
And then the Batman figurine falls over just as Master Z falls over. And then you see the girl like working on it to fix it.
Mm-hmm.
And at the same time you flash to
It's
Master
so beautiful.
Z like in a like, overexposed, like heaven looking room, and he starts
practicing on the Wing Chun dummy.
yeah. And you're like, here it is. Let's go. And then she sets the Batman down and winds it, and the music works, and then he gets up at the same time and he obliterates Dave Bautista
Using Wing Chun.
So freaking cool. I love that.
Mm-hmm.
The whole sequence is insane. Must be seen to be believed. And it's on Netflix, fools. Watch it. And you're not fools. Thank you for listening. And then, the police come, and there's this scene that was like a little bit wild, where the police are like, nah, I don't believe what really happened. I think the restaurant owner's fine.
Yeah. And
then they just start beating up people who are, for lack of a better word, protesting what the police are doing. Which, if you're listening to this in the future, just Google June 2020 America George Floyd. And I'm watching this scene and I'm like, I've been watching footage of this really happening for the past like 3 or 4 months.
Yeah.
So that was like, oh, wow, okay. And then eventually I think the Chinese police are like,
they ended up arresting that guy, the British guy.
And they take care of it, which is like, okay, cool. There is hope. And then Dave Bautista runs away, and you had been waiting to say this, so I want you
So he's running away, and at that point, Tenchi does see that he's running away, so I think he's running after him. But then there's just Tony Jaa nonchalantly leaning
we haven't
against...
seen him since the fight,
No, I haven't seen him since the fight. Still in his fedora, I believe. Just nonchalantly leaning against a car, sees Dave Bautista running, pulls out a cylinder, takes off the cap. There's an icicle in there, people. Like dried ice. Shoots it into the back of Dave Bautista's
head. Doesn't he throw it?
Throws it, probably, into the back of his head. And he dies. Guys, he committed the perfect murder. And I've never seen it done like that. I think Dwight Schrute has said that would be the perfect murder at some point. And I didn't think I would ever see it in a movie. I don't know. It was just like it was so unbelievable that I was laughing. Because it's like, guys, that's a little too much. And this movie was already a lot.
But at the same time, I'm like, if it wasn't Tony Jaa who did it, I think it would be stupid, but it's him, so I'm into it.
Yeah.
It's cool. So he dies. They go back home. Master Z and his son have like the fried rice and
congee and fried bread.
And then he's with the girl who he's become quite fond of. And then the movie's over, and then the montage of the credits is showing him and his son using fighting on Wing Chun dummies.
I loved it. It was so
It
nice.
was so cute and cool. And I'm like, let's have the sequel. Because the sequel's got to be about Tony Jaa, right? He's got to be the main guy.
Really?
Right? Wouldn't that's what you do? I mean, he assassinates a guy. It's like, who sent him to assassinate? This random guy. Let's find out in the sequel to Master Z.
Sure.
That's what I'm saying. And maybe at the end of the movie, maybe they fight a couple of times in the next movie, but then by the end, they're like, actually, we have a common goal. And then Tony Jaa and Master Z fight the big bad guy at the end.
Oh.
And the girl, too. I can't remember her name.
That's a lot of people.
Yeah. Yeah.
We'll see.
And Michelle Yeoh's still alive in this series, so she could be in the next one.
Yep.
I loved it.
Me too.
It was so cool.
I think this is my favorite one so far, and I think it's because the other ones exist that it's my favorite one. Because I think it's a better movie. I don't know. Ip Man is amazing.
Yeah.
In every way.
Yeah.
But I think I liked this one more.
Yep.
I think it is a better movie.
Wow. I'll have to simmer a little bit, but the more I'm simmering, the more I'm like, there's that thing where it's like, oh, maybe a certain movie is better than other movies, but it doesn't mean you're going to watch it as much or like it as much. And I feel like Ip Man 1 is better than this movie, but this movie is I could see myself turning it on more often than Ip Man 1. Although Ip Man 1 rules.
Yeah, it does.
So next week we're doing Ip Man 4, the final fight, I think.
The Final Frontier.
I can't remember what it's called, folks. And again, cut us a little slack on this episode. Although I think we did okay. And should we announce our next series? We're 2 weeks out. It's October. It's the first week of October,
Do
I
you
think,
want
right
to?
now. I think we should.
Okay. We're doing a very special, very spooky, very scary series for October.
Yeah.
We're doing Insidious.
Insidious. I have never seen any of these movies.
I've seen numero uno.
So this will be interesting, and sometimes horror doesn't sit well with Micah, even though I do like it.
But you got Patrick Wilson in this, so
yeah, it'll be fun. I'm excited to watch them. And of course, we're gonna do our Halloween episode about a failed franchise, so look forward to that.
Yep.
We have that planned out. Very excited about that one as well. So we have a very busy October month. Since it is October, we're on Patreon. We came out with our Monsters, Inc. episode, which you can only get on Patreon. We are going to put a link to how to donate to help people who've lost their homes. And I don't know exactly. We're still in the midst of it right now. So I don't know exactly what I'll put there. But of course, we would love you to join us on Patreon. But if you can spare any money, that's much more important than the Patreon. So thank you for listening.
Stay safe.
Please rate, review, subscribe. And I have a note for us.
From who?
It's from the internet. And this is how I would like to end the episode. April of 2020, a film adaptation was announced to be officially in development of the book of the Hunger Games that just came out. Francis Lawrence will return as director with a script written by Michael Arndt from a story adaptation by Suzanne Collins. Nina Jacobson will return as producer alongside Brad Simpson. The project will be developed by Color Force and distributed by Lionsgate.
Why did you read that?
Because I'm keeping our audience up to date that there's another Hunger Games movie coming out.
Why did you think that she wrote the book?
What?
Why did you think she wrote the book?
She did.
So they can make another movie.
Oh, I thought you were asking. We'll see you guys next week when
Bye.
we do Ip Man 4. Bye.